Commissioner Harden to lead us in a prayer and invocation.
Lord, thank you, Lord, for this day, and thank you for allowing us to be here and this opportunity to serve our community. Thank you for this holiday and spirit of Thanksgiving in this season. And I ask you, Lord, as we go throughout the business, that you would help us to guide our community in the direction we would have it to go. Lord, I ask you the same. Amen.
Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right. Any changes to the agenda?
I'd like to pull number 10 from the consent, and I'd like to add an item just under discussion. It's about a possible resolution condemning racism in Wakulla County.
Okay.
Just under discussion.
Any other changes?
Pull 7 and 8.
7 and 8. Also, I'm going to add under awards and presentation to Representative Bashirs, who's in the audience somewhere. Did he move? Okay, very good. And also a presentation about the Historical Society. And Sheriff Creel or Representative, is someone here on his behalf? I'm going to put him on the awards and presentation in case he makes it here. Also, County Administrator has asked to add to the consent agenda a resolution on the Big Bend Crime Stoppers letter of support, and also scrap and SCOP budget amendment.
Move to approve.
Second.
Did we get that? Scrap and SCOP? We got it?
Yeah.
Okay.
Any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right. Next, we will go to citizens to be heard. For the first one, we have one speaker, Mr. James Hennessy.
Yeah, and they disappeared. I have to, because I'll explain to you later. Thanks.
Good evening, Commissioners.
Evening.
I, like many other Wakulla citizens, am shocked, saddened, and embarrassed by the events of the past 2 weeks in this county. However, I wish I could say I was surprised. When my wife and I moved here in 1997, we knew nothing of the history of bigotry and intolerance in this county. I was surprised back then when the first time we threw a staff party for the FSU Counseling Center, some of my African American colleagues expressed reticence about coming because they would need to return at night. They felt it might not be safe. At the time, I tried to reassure them and told them of all the nice people I had met here. I still feel that most of the people in the county are good, fair, and just people, but I am no longer naive about the undercurrent of racism that exists among some and the damage it does to our sense of community. It became more obvious and pronounced during the last couple of presidential elections, and I was dismayed that, absurdly, it even reared its ugly head in the wetlands debate via social media. In being at public events and going door to door in that campaign, I met a lot of truly nice people, which made it all the more disturbing when someone would make an irrelevant and out-of-the-blue racist comment. I ignored these remarks, but it did make me think that these people would not say such things to a perfect stranger unless they felt it was somehow acceptable to do so, and that they had been emboldened by others in the community. The recent events with the Sheriff's Department and the church desecrations create an opportunity for this county and this commission to unite and come together to make a statement that Wakulla is changing and won't be held back by the intolerance of a few and the silence of many. Sheriff Creel is admirably doing his part in strongly addressing the issue in his department. I was also heartened by Mr. Thomas's presence representing the commission at the town hall meeting at the New Bridge Hope Church last Friday, and by the Friday after Thanksgiving, and by the spontaneously supportive actions of the members of the Wakulla United Methodist Church on Sunday. This is a beginning, but we need to do more. It would be easy to blame what has happened on the ignorance, racism, and cowardice of a few. Our county government must take the lead in making Wakulla supportive and sensitive to all its citizens and welcoming to outsiders. We must work to increase the diversity in the staff of all our public institutions, not out of political correctness, but because that will make them better to serve all our citizens as well as stronger and more effective. We must encourage the participation and tap the knowledge and experience of all our citizens regardless of ethnicity, religion, or social class. After all, that is what this country was founded upon. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. All right, next we're going to move into the public hearing. Louis?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, this item is for consider adoption of an ordinance creating Section 633 of the Land Development Code and amending Section 2.4 of the Land Development Code pertaining to low-impact development standards. The low-impact development is referenced several times in the Land Development Code and also in the Comprehensive Plan. We've just never developed the standards that are required. Basically, in a nutshell, low-impact development is a method of decentralizing stormwater treatment through various methods, including pervious pavement and green roofs and other landscaping techniques. So we've developed a draft ordinance that addresses these things. It is mainly incentive-based. We have a set of incentives if you're in Crawfordville, if you're outside of Crawfordville, and then there's a requirement that if you're in the Primary Springs Protection District that you have to use lid techniques for developments exceeding 10,000 square feet of impervious area, and it has to treat 25% of your post-development impervious
I'll
area.
make a motion to conduct the public hearing and adopt the proposed ordinance creating Section 633 of the Land Development Code and amending Section 2.4 of the Land Development Code pertaining to LID standards, with the change that in the areas where it's compulsory, that we mirror our site plan standards, which is 20,000 square feet of square footage before it applies. Recently we changed our site plans where it has to be 20,000 square feet or more before it goes to the board. Everything else is handled in-house. And if we can get that changed, and only in areas where it's required, does it only be required on those site plans with 20,000 square feet floor area or greater, like a Walmart or something like that.
I second that. We have a second.
No citizens. Any discussion on this?
Mr. Cerna, what would be the impact of that?
Well, I think the concern is that we've never had a lid ordinance before, and we're not sure that the concern is that it could cause unnecessary burdens on development and may be too prohibitive, and that's the last thing we want to do is make it prohibitive to have development. So it would create a higher threshold, so fewer developments would be required.
Commercial development, not
It's commercial, yeah,
subdivision.
commercial. It wouldn't apply to residential.
So can you give me like an example of this 20,000 and 10,000 square feet in real terms?
Well, the apartment complex that we had recently in Crawfordville, that exceeded the 20,000 square foot threshold. We don't get a lot of development of that scale, and probably not in the north part of the county, but the Primary Springs Protection Zone does come down in the northern part of Crawfordville, so we could potentially get developments of that size.
My concern was it dips as far as Bellamy's and Beef O'Brady's. It comes down that far south. Something like the auto zone that was just built, that would be excluded. Of course, it would still follow site plan regulations, but...
So what kind of a burden would this be if someone that was under 20,000 square feet had to meet the low-impact development?
Well, it would require that they get an engineer to make the demonstration that they are utilizing lid techniques, which are they are more expensive. That's why you don't see people volunteering to do it. It does reduce the size of your stormwater pond that you have to have, which is an advantage if you want to, make that investment. But I think there's a little bit of uncertainty that since not a lot of people are doing it voluntarily, that it could be a burden if we have too low of a threshold.
Okay, and so how is this done in other counties? What's their thresholds?
Well, not a lot of counties are doing it. We have been working on this, and we waited until after Leon County adopted an ordinance I don't think they have I think they have probably a lower threshold, and we have more incentive, so that's something different than we've done. But, you know, we purposely did not, the comp plan doesn't specify a threshold, so we sort of set a high threshold of 10,000 square feet. But given the concerns, you know, we're not opposed to the 20,000 square feet, and see how it goes from there.
I'm more in favor of this being an incentive-based instead of just making it mandatory that you got to do it. I would rather it be incentive-based.
Problem is, the comp plan says you have to do it inside the Springs protection area. So in Crawfordville, it would be, I agree 100%. If it's an incentive, then there's a reason to do it. But it's not, it's compulsory in the Springs protection area, and it's never been enforced. This would enforce it. Very similar to how we had a wetlands regulation in the comp plan for many, many, many years. Never enforced till the ordinance came into place.
So the 10,000 foot, according to the original proposal before us, the 10,000 square foot would be in the Springs protection zone.
Yes.
Okay, and that would stay.
No, it would be, what's being proposed is upping that threshold where it's mandatory in the Springs Protection Zone to 20,000
The
square feet.
incentives would still apply, though. If they wanted to do it with the incentives, they could still do it and get the extra credits for parking or whatever.
That's right, there's no thresholds on the incentives.
So we're giving the incentives, we want them to go in this direction. They're getting some benefit out of those incentives, and yet we're increasing the threshold for kicking it into 20,000. I don't think that's in the best interest of the county.
And it's only for non-residential development.
I got it.
I had a couple of comments also, and I asked Louis this earlier, but I just wanted to get him to clarify. Section 6-33, 2 Bravo states that the applicant's plan must include provisions for enforcement. So the plan they're submitting to us has to include enforcement. I'd just like for him to explain that for the benefit of the public.
Yes, that's for things like pervious pavement, for example, has to be swept periodically.
And vacuumed.
And vacuumed, yes.
Just swept.
And landscaping, sometimes you have to have silt removed if you're using it for stormwater. So we would rely on the engineer to come up with those long-term maintenance requirements as a part of the site plan.
Gotcha. And then also, maybe this is for Randy, Section 633, 3 Bravo also talks about soft gravel, hard gravel, and different categories is listed as pervious and impervious. My question is whether there was a DOT standard that we could reference instead of, you know, it seemed a little ambiguous to me, and I don't know.
You could specify permeability if you wanted to. I mean, number 57 rock is a lot more permeable than lime rock base that's been compacted. I always wondered about that myself.
Is there an
They're treated
easier
the
way
same.
to reference that? Because there's several categories that's included in there, but if someone wanted pea gravel or river rock, you know, I mean, would be any confusion of whether that is in the category with granite or a category with soft gravel?
If you wanted to set a standard, whatever the permeability of cold mix asphalt is, of course, Cleve, that's permeable, right? It's exempt from stormwater standards, cold mix asphalt is, so I'd say maybe whatever that standard is, it can't be less permeable than that. If that's...
Would there be an easy way to incorporate that, or should we leave it?
Yeah,
as
they
it-
must have a minimum permeability of, specified in inches per hour of permeability, so you can, whatever you wanted to say.
Well, if just was wondering if somebody wanted to add to their building and their present parking right now is primarily grass parking, would this mean in order to get approved they would have to improve their parking surface to a more permeable surface?
Depends. If it's in the, not in the Springs Protection Zone, then no, they wouldn't have to do it. They could if they wanted to. If they're in the Springs Protection Zone, and under my proposal, if they're under 20,000 square feet of floor area, then no, they wouldn't have to. That would encompass all the moms and pops and stuff like that. So.
Yeah, because I wasn't wanting to create a situation to where someone who had a grass parking lot, which a lot of businesses do, would all of a sudden have to go out, and didn't want to create that situation for those small business owners.
That 20,000 threshold would kick
To
in.
answer your
And
question,
it would only kick in the Springs Protection Zone, right?
Right.
So if they're not in the Springs Protection Zone, then that wouldn't be a factor.
right,
And it would still be incentive based.
correct.
So if someone
If
if someone outside of Springs Protection Zone wanted to do that, there was incentives for
Right.
them to do it.
They could either
But
maybe
they-
have less parking spots, lower setbacks, something like that. Right, Louis?
Yes, and on the material, we wanted to specify materials that would not degrade over time, like lime rock, for example, would gradually crushes and turns into dust and is no longer as impervious as it is from the beginning. So we specified some things that we didn't want to be used, but I think at some point we rely on the engineer to say that this is the material, this is the void space that it provides, and it will hold up in the long term. So
DEP does make a guide for stormwater that includes definitions of this porous pavement and stuff like that. It's a really nice gloss color thing. So I don't know if there's a scientific number you can specify. I don't know how good of an idea that would be. I'd maybe want to leave it to the engineer so he can get sued if it doesn't work.
Would this only be something that come in?
Give the lawyer something to do.
Hey Randy, would this only be something that come in effect now and moving forward? It wouldn't be retroactive to existing places, would it?
It's a good question. If somebody wanted to add 20,000 square feet to their building and they're in the Springs Protection Zone, I assume it would apply.
it would be to new development of
Only new
20,000
development.
square feet.
But-
New development is an addition, though. That's
Right,
considered
but-
new development.
But it wouldn't count the existing
It wouldn't-
structure,
it-
just the new
It
portion.
wouldn't matter about someone existing now.
Right.
So it would only be...
Exactly.
It would only be new construction, new development from certain date moving forward.
They're not going to go to Walmart next week and say, y'all need to add.
So if they were like they are
Bring-
now, they're grandfathered in, but if they decided to make an addition, then they've got to comply with the new
It has to
standard.
kick over the threshold in the Springs Protection Area,
The Springs Protection
or
Area.
if it's not in it, it's optional.
Okay.
So Louis, give me an example of a 10,000 square foot business.
Well, even 10,000 square feet is pretty large. So yeah, I'm not sure I can give you an example of.
It actually reads impervious area.
Oh, really? Okay. Yeah, Summer's telling me AutoZone is about 7,500 square feet of floor area. So that gives you an idea of, 10,000 square feet would be a little larger than that.
So
So we're talking large development when we say 20,000 square feet.
But yours, the original one says impervious area, which includes parking lot and roof,
That's right.
right? So the AutoZone would be way over the 10,000 square feet.
Yes. But, yeah, floor area, it just gives you an idea.
So that wouldn't, so AutoZone in the Springs Protection Area wouldn't not trigger it if it was set at the 20,000?
That's right, if it was new development.
Right.
Mhm.
Okay.
Walmart would, but not AutoZone.
Any further discussion? Call for the vote, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All opposed?
All right.
Passes 4-1. Next, we have a resolution of intent to conduct a public hearing and adopt the resolution for the uniform method of collection for assessment.
Motion to approve.
Second.
And we do have two citizens. Pat Gardella? Come on now.
Thank you. Picked up tent and so on and so forth this afternoon. It immediately gave me sort of like a cardiac arrhythmia when I began to read some of the things. And I wanted to say thank you to a young lady, Miss Jessica, in your office. Miss Jessica? Oh, thank you very much. You spoke to me this afternoon on the phone for a while, and she did her very best to answer a multitude of questions. She was very kind, very patient. Thank you. So, question number one, and this is kind of in three parts. Since I read that there was the intent to impose special assessments, that's what sort of I read first and started me on my search here. First of all, I need to understand from you, what does uniform method involve, or what does it mean? Is that the same as my tax bill and the ad valorem state enumeration that's here, or, I mean, we have the non-ad valorem here. I mean, where is that going to be, and what is the uniform method? That's question number one.
Better go through.
Okay. Question number two involves that there are about 8 or 9 visions that are listed, enumerated in your statement. The last 4 or 5 impressed me as being sort of vague and open-ended. I mean, it says facilities. What facilities? How many facilities? Wind and clean energy improvements. where, what, when, those kind of things. And so on those visions, I'd like some clarification if that's possible. And then that led me on to say, to ask if you had a 5-year vision plan. And Mr. Moore very kindly spoke to me prior to the meeting and said that you do have a 5-year plan that you're already 3 years into or something like that. But I think a little bit further on, these other added things would certainly go beyond this current 5-year period. And I need to know, or if it's possible to know, do you have some estimation of what the tax burden of those now undone things would give us? Although I understand that most everything that's been mentioned is already figured into the budget, I just would like your confirmation that that's indeed true, so that we have some idea if there is, beyond this 5-year plan, the probability of tax increases on our property. So thank you.
Thank you very much. Right on the buzzer. And if I'll get Heather to explain the specifics about the uniform reporting method, if you don't mind.
Sure. The uniform method of collection is authorized in Section 197 of Florida statutes. And what this basically does is preserves the board's ability to put non-ad valorem assessments and have them collected on the same bill as ad valorem taxes. It's not required. They can change their mind. They don't have to do any of them, but it's a procedural step that's necessary per Florida statutes. On the questions about the type of services, this is basically the list of services that would potentially legally qualify as a special assessment. The ones you noted in particular are the clean energy and wind resistance improvements, and other neighborhood improvements, facilities, and associated services. Those are included because we have a voluntary assessment program on our books that allows neighborhoods, if they want to have their road paved, they can petition the county and say, we want to have our paved, we're willing to pay for it. And then if the county decided to go forward with that, we would be able to use the tax bill to collect that. The reason we would want to use the tax bill is because it's a lot less expensive and it's a lot more efficient.
And make sure you stress this is not a new tax. If it was, I can assure you this room would be packed with gills. This is just how is the board going to collect what the assessments are now and any possible future contingency. It's not a tax.
And if the board did elect to put any of these on the tax bill for next year, there would be any new ones. There would be a notice, first-class mail notice to everyone who's affected, newspaper notice, and a public hearing on it. So this is the first procedural step. All it does is puts your 2x4 in the door and allows you to get on the tax bill if you decide to go forward.
And the tax burden would be calculated at that point. And I know of no intent of anyone on this board to add any of those just because we have the ability to. On the contrary, we've taken a pretty hard stand against new taxes. But if anything changes with this board or future boards, that would have to be properly noticed and public hearing, and so all that information would be available at that time. Thank you for your comments. Next, Mr. Larry Roberts.
Gentlemen, are we talking about MSBU here for this, or is MSBU something else?
No, it's the same. I mean, MSBU is technically something else, but it's this collection method used.
This is how to collect the MSBU.
Piece of it.
Yeah.
And right now, collected under the MSBU is fire and ambulance service, and that's all.
No, just fire and solid waste.
Fire and solid waste. Okay. I was thinking ambulance service was in there. I
No.
forgot about solid
That
waste.
happened in the past,
Yeah.
but not now.
It's good to hear that nobody has the intentions of taxing anything else. However, I'm not sure that we can trust this board, not necessarily you five here, but the next group or the next, that if it's there, it'll be taxed. If there's a method to get some money, government is going to find a way to spend it. I've always supported the MSBU, but if it will lower our ad valorem taxes. If it won't lower ad valorem taxes, I would be against it. What I really think we should be talking about now, instead of MSBU, and I know we're not going to, is impact fees. That is a method that prevents us from subsidizing the developer in the future. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Roberts. Any discussion from the board? Hearing none, we have a first and second. All for the motion?
Aye.
Opposed? Passes 5-0. That is the end of our public hearing section. We'll go into awards and presentation. First, I'd like to thank Representative Bashirs for joining us tonight. Before you come up, if I could just brag about him a little bit. He's been very good friend to Wakulla County, so we appreciate that and appreciate you coming down here tonight. The House just announced the chairman or their assignments, committee assignments, and so I'd like to announce that Representative Bashirs is incoming chairman of the Business and Professional Subcommittee, vice chairman of the Energy and Utilities Subcommittee, member of the House Regulatory Affairs Committee, member of the Joint Legislative Committee on Public Counsel, and member of the Oversight of the Rulemaking and Repeal Subcommittee. So he's going to be busy this year. We appreciate all the hard work you put in. If I could read this. Wakulla County Board of County Commissioners Certificate of Appreciation to Honorable Halsey Bashirs, Florida Representative, District 7, in honor of his dedication and commitment to the Wakulla County government and its citizens, 2014 legislative session. Thank you, sir. If you wouldn't mind coming up and saying a few words.
You want a picture, Nicole? You want to get a picture?
Yeah, let's all go down there and get a picture, but
Then you ain't got to put the timer on me, Mr. Chairman, I promise. So, thank you for the opportunity to be here. It's good seeing all you commissioners, and thank you very much for the recognition. I sincerely appreciate that, and this means a lot coming from me down here. I will say it's a team effort, so Senator Mumford has as much to play in it because we've got to get through his house as well, but we do thank you.
well, we appreciate what you're doing. We know that you're working hard for us, but we want to make sure that you know when you need us, call us as well. And if we can come to Tallahassee and help you, we'd be glad to.
Yes, sir. Thank you for letting me know my assignments. I was just trying to look them up.
Can we all come down and get a photo?
I like your casual style of dress too, Halsey.
Okay.
You want mine?
You can have hers. There you go. I dare you.
You're the tallest one. You got to stand next to Jerry.
Good. Yeah, absolutely.
Oh, man.
We didn't get that many till you got up here.
Thank you, Halsey.
Mr. Halsey, you be careful going home. We have a lot of deer on the road.
Yes, sir.
We don't want anything to happen to you.
All right, next we're going to invite Mr. Chris Doolin to come up with the Small County Coalition.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the board, Mr. Administrator. My name is Chris Doolin. I have for about 23 years represented the Small County Coalition. Our firm, Robert P. Jones and Associates, were instrumental in the formation of the coalition as it exists now, and we're very pleased with the success and growth of the organization. I want to congratulate those of you that were recently re-elected and thank the Commission as a group for your continued support of the coalition. Throughout the years, Wakulla County has played an important role in this organization. Previous commissioners, I saw Ed Bremner here earlier, Howard, Commissioner Kessler for over a period of time, but I want to recognize Commissioner Thomas, who at our last meeting in Tampa was elected to serve on our executive committee and through July of 2016, and he was selected to serve as a co-chair of the Rural Caucus within the Florida Association of Counties. Commissioner Thomas asked me to come down, share some things. I won't be as quick as Representative Bashirs, but I want to share an overview of who we are, what we do, so that folks in this community understand the importance of organizations like ours, and that you have a sense of confidence when you participate or see stuff from our organization, that you're doing things that are in the best interest of this county. And how does your participation in this organization affect this community? And it does. This group was established back in 1991 at the request of members of the legislature. That's a very, very important distinction. We were asked to address a couple issues, and there was not a strong statewide advocacy program on behalf of small counties per se. There was a statewide effort, and it was a good effort through the Florida Association of Counties, but rural issues were not surfacing to the top. So a couple members of the legislature asked us to see what we could do, and we looked around. It was beginning of when growth management was coming into play, and one-size-fits-all. The agencies were running a lot of one-size-fits-all legislation. For our purposes, a small county is, we determined 150,000 and less. It provides a good range of numbers of counties. Currently, 37 counties participate. That's a majority of the state. So whether we're working on policies inside the state association or whether we're working on policies with government agencies, agency secretaries understand the significance of their policies as it relates to rural areas. The importance in the legislature is this. 13 Senate districts include portions of small counties, and 20 House districts. And, numbers matter. More importantly, the people in the positions matter. You don't need a whole lot of support. When you have people like Representative Beshears and Senator Mumford, they coalesce with their colleagues. But we have a sufficient number of 13 Senate districts and 20 House districts that you have an influence. You can impact state policy, and they do. Our House and Senate members are well aware of the limited capacity that you in Wakulla and small counties have statewide, and they have addressed that limited capacity through a variety of state programs, statutes, program funding, and to address the difficulties that you have in providing the services that the community deserves on a statewide basis. Now, why are we needed? Because 67 counties are just not the same. And as an example, Dade, the largest county, 2.6 million people. The smallest county is Liberty, little over 8,000 people, 8,400. Wakulla is at 30,800, a little more than that. These are 2013 figures. All 37 small counties would not make up 2/3 of Dade. Fiscal capacity is more important in terms of how we look at things. Dade County, from the value of a mill, 1 mill of property tax in Dade County, generates $196 million. In Liberty, $198,000. When I speak before a legislative committee and I talk about the value of a mill, I mean, that really makes an impression. Wakulla generates just over a mill. But when you talk about buying roads and the cost for a mile of road or buying commodities, they're by and large about the same. I mean, there's cost differentials, but by and large they're about the same. The value of a mill of property tax in Wakulla County is $35 less per capita than the statewide average. So your land values do not generate even close to what the statewide average is. In Dade, your other revenue source, a penny, other than fees and such, basically your ad valorem or a penny, $469 million in Dade. Liberty, $339,000. Wakulla, you generate about $2 million, but that's $67 per capita. It's $97 less than the statewide average per capita. So the statewide average is about $160, $150. We have, through your efforts and the efforts of local officials, made a significant impact. Literally dozens of statutes are on the books. From the time this organization was created, I did a Google search on the terms small county, fiscally constrained, or rural communities, and over 260 pieces of legislation came up. Reduction of permit fees, waiver of permit fees, revenue sharing, rural development grants, grant review, competitive points, waivers of review processes, rural economic development, payment in lieu of taxes. Literally billions of dollars have been redirected into small counties. Small county road assistance. I mean, you get millions of dollars a year. Small county outreach, fiscally constrained, juvenile detention, parks, all the various grants programs, libraries, health departments. I kind of tried to pick and choose a little bit to figure out how much money comes into this county every year from in non-recurring project funds and recurring operational funds. Generally speaking, about over $10 million comes into this community from state programs, agency-funded programs or agency-funded projects. That is absolutely essential. We had our legislative meeting in Tampa last week, 2 weeks ago, and the priorities that we're going to deal with. I always kind of talk to folks about when you go sit down with Santa Claus, you have a list of things you ask for. The most important thing to ask for is just protect your base. Don't let anything bad happen to us. Don't take anything away from us. Don't cost us more money. So protecting, maintaining, enhancing existing funding programs. And you know, I had a legislative program, but you've received it from me. You don't need it. You've received it, but it has a list of programs and funding that your legislators are well aware of, and they'll work very closely with us. So maintaining existing programs, very important this year for Wakulla and for a number of counties, is addressing the changes that occurred 2 years ago when they changed the formula for Medicaid cost share. What used to happen is you would pay for citizens that used Medicaid services on a formula determined by the state, and there's a set amount of money based on their costs, what they used. There were billing problems that ACA couldn't get their bills straight. There were backlogs. You remember some of this. But they changed the formula so that there weren't necessarily bills based on utilization. They changed it based on a factor of enrollment. The change goes into effect this year. It will be transitioned over the next 5 years. This is not Obamacare. This is not federal Medicaid. This is the amount of money the state budget uses or collects from counties. It's a set amount. It is a budget figure. They changed that. The 5-year change, that's Wakulla is projected. Your cost share is going to increase by 62% over the next 5 years. That's going to be, it amounts to about $100,000 a year. Not because anybody in Wakulla is using 1 penny more of service. It's they changed the formula. Now, you know, you got winners and your losers, but there's a 240% range. We, working with the Florida Association of Counties, are working very hard. Look, you could create different criteria. You'd have a different set of winners and losers, and it's going to be very difficult to change that formula. We're calling and asking the legislature to step in and buy down the counties that exceed a certain level. If you capped everybody at 3% growth, so you would mitigate the significant Lafayette County's at 220% increase. I mean, it's just it's just, you wouldn't do it. If one district was 220 and somebody else got a 30%, you wouldn't do it. And so we're calling for a cap on Medicaid. It costs about $3 million. It's a low ticket item. It will have recurring costs that will accumulate and will increase, but we really need to manage that. That transition goes into effect this year. You've been paying on 100% utilization. Next year it'll be 80 utilization, 20 enrollee. Next year after that it'll be 60-40, 40-60. And so over the next 5 years, and then 5 years down the road, 100% will be based on this new enrollee factor. And so that really needs to get handled this year. Reauthorization of enterprise zone programs and economic development. There were studies last year looking at the value of enterprise zones. That will be a critical issue, reauthorizing those zones. It may not look the same. Rural areas don't operate the same as urban. In urban, you give incentives to companies to go into blighted areas. There is some criteria for blightedness in the rural. That's really not what we need. We need an incentive package to locate new jobs in rural Florida wherever they would like to locate. Maximize their capacity. Last thing really, there are a whole bunch of things, but the whole notion of Amendment 1, the implementation of Amendment 1, land acquisition, payment in lieu of taxes, the impact on future development with when these funds and the implementation of the Florida Water and Land Conservation Initiative. Local governments, what we're saying is local governments need to be involved where you have an acquisition or a transfer so that the local government understands what the impact is of that transfer, whether it's purchased, whether it's donated, because there will be impacts on your tax base. And many of our small counties have a significant amount of their tax roll exempted, and that's why we have fiscally constrained counties. So that'll be a huge issue. And what this particular amendment is going to do, I mean, it obligates, it freezes into these particular priorities, and they're decent priorities. I mean, nobody's quibbling over that. It just limits the flexibility of government to allocate where it needs to be allocated, and that's going to grow to about it's $648 million. Next year it'll grow to about $1.3 billion over time. And then, you know, you have water projects in the whole water quality and water quantity access issues. So these are going to be a few of the areas that are the center of attention. There will be more. You have a legislative agenda. I've talked to your staff. I've looked over the initial aspect of it. Looks strong. It is dynamic enough that it accommodates some of the things that we have and the state association. So your legislative agenda, which is going to be updated because we're all just finishing our agendas, looks good. I know you're going to be prepared for your legislative delegation hearings, and I know your legislators, Mr. Beshears and Mumford, are going to be very easy to work with. They have been. And session starts on March 3rd. We'll have a briefing and some events in the middle of the session. And I hope you fare well. You should fare well. You have a good, positive approach to the legislature. You're active. You're involved in a lot of different things, from corrections to a variety of things. So, you know, we'll work closely with you. I want to congratulate Commissioner Thomas and express our appreciation for the involvement that you have had in those organizations, because you have elevated the discussion about what the meaning of this Medicaid cost share is about, and I'd be pleased to answer any questions. So
I have a couple of seconds. Now, Commissioner Thomas is our representative to the Florida Association of Counties.
Yes, sir.
And you are representative somewhat, or to the Small County Coalition.
Okay, let me just okay. The coalition has 2 appointed commissioners. You're one, Mr. Thomas is one, okay? To our board of directors are 2 commissioners from each of our members.
Okay. That's what I was trying.
Okay, that's now I am not with the Florida Association of Counties, regardless of the title. We are an independent organization that they decided, the county commissioners decided that they needed a separate independent push. Now, I work closely with them, and I will tell you, small counties need a strong state association. And I think one of the reasons that the legislators asked me 25 years ago to help create this organization is because that organization was not communicating as effectively as it needed to rural legislators. Now, I didn't mean in any way, shape, or form to say our rural legislators weren't doing a good job, because anybody who knows Dempsey Barron or Pat Thomas or those guys knew they could bring it home better than anybody. So let me stop there. Other questions?
That's pretty much it.
Okay.
I want to just take this time to thank you for all the help that you do provide, because I know that your emails disseminate a lot of information on a regular basis, sometimes real-time information.
Yep.
And I just wanted to thank you for all that you do to represent our voice, because you're who liaison is between us and them. I just want to thank you.
Well, I'm going to go ahead and rat Jerry out, too. When he first got elected, remember, he said, "Who's this guy sending all these emails? Who's this Chris Doolin guy?"
Yeah.
I understand. Well, you know,
Just sent a lot of emails.
we're kind of a low-budget operation. I don't have a lot of glossy letterhead, and I don't Twitter, and I don't Facebook, and all that kind of stuff.
Very informative. It's the first thing I go to every day.
Well,
Yes, good answer, Jerry.
Quick information gives you influence.
if it's quick, so.
Well, I can tell you firsthand, I see Chris working hard, not only the emails that he puts behind it, but down there at the conference, even though it's the Florida Association of Counties, he's right there involved in every bit of it, every committee, and he's working hard for small counties. Something that I learned that was really staggering that shows the importance of why small counties have to stand together. 60% of the representatives in the state come from 7 counties. I think Representative Beshears has 10 counties by himself.
Like being on the CRTPA.
And so we have to unite together. We have to have that voice. And so Chris kind of brings us all together. So thank you for all of that.
And I called and talked to him. I had an idea about a different way to fund law enforcement other than ad valorem, and he was gracious enough to talk to him about it for quite some time.
Well, my cell phone number is at the bottom of every one of my emails, okay? You know how to get me, and all you got to do is reply on an issue. Just kind of let me know. I know who you guys are. Some of the newbies, statewide, I just tell them, hey, give me an idea on what you're talking about and where I met you, and then let's, we'll work on it. So I do appreciate it. And any other questions?
Comments?
No, just thank you, Chris.
All right.
Thank you,
Appreciate
Chris.
you guys. Okay. All right.
Next, we're going to ask Mr. Mark Mitchell to come up on behalf of Panacea Waterfronts.
Good evening, Commissioners.
Evening.
Hope you all had a wonderful Thanksgiving. Looking forward to a Merry Christmas.
Oh, yeah.
There's been a lot of hunting down in our area. Speaking with Howard earlier, and had a lot of duck hunting, Commissioner Moore. Sounded like a war Thanksgiving morning down there.
I'm glad the shot's small. It doesn't carry to my house.
I don't know if they were killing a lot, but there was a lot of shooting. But I don't know if you're aware of it or not, but it was almost a year to the day that I was here last talking to y'all about Panacea Incorporation. It was actually December the 9th. And at that time we asked y'all to approve a resolution on the incorporation of Panacea. And in no way, shape, or form does that say that y'all are in favor or not in favor or wanting us to do it. It's just you're giving your blessing for us to take it forward to the Florida legislature and Representative Beshears to take it forward to his committees to bring it back to the citizens of Panacea and let them make the decision if they want to be an incorporated city. And that's all I'm here tonight to do, is to ask y'all to basically use the same exact resolution that you signed and agreed to last year, and let us try to get this through the legislature. This will be our 3rd effort, and we're hoping the 3rd time is a charm.
I will be bringing that forward as a motion at the next meeting.
Okay?
And if this makes it through legislature, when will it actually go to the voters?
In June.
June of this year?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Special
And
election?
Special election, and
We'll need a count.
we'll have to have 2 special elections. We'll have to have the first one for the voters to decide if they do want to be a city or not. And if they so do that, then we'll have to have a special election for the 5 city commissioners.
And that is for Panacea only, though. The special
Panacea
election for
only.
yeah.
That's right.
And that doesn't include Ocklackney Bay.
No, it does
it's
not.
Sort of to the end of Panacea on both ends.
It kind of stops right about Ben Wither's office and starts at Bottoms Road, your road.
Yeah.
And then the bay and the
Chattahoochee is the west, I guess. Chattahoochee is the west boundary.
the bay is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's pretty much the west boundary.
Yeah. Okay?
So, some questions. In this study, it doesn't seem to be the same as what was brought forward last year. So like the $11 per meter, is that going to be, the funding source?
It's up to a 6% franchise fee. David can answer more clearly.
I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
I was asking because there seems to be some difference between this document
yes.
and the documents that we had prior. And in the documents we had prior, one of the things was that $11 per meter
Right.
fee. Is that going to be, is that going to be the same? For the way I understood it, how this is going to be funded, the citizens of Panacea were going to be funding their government.
Absolutely.
It'll be
And
funded
it was
and-
supposed to be government. It's supposed to be neutral to the
Right.
county.
Absolutely, the budgetary impact on the county will be zero.
Currently, the plan is that the CST taxes and the PST taxes that we charge will be returned back to the county. The city is proposing to charge 3% extra on top of the 7% PST that will go to the county. So they'll charge the citizens of Panacea 10%. 7% of that comes back to us as normal. 3% would go to the citizens of, or go to the city of Panacea.
Are any of these specifics addressed in this resolution, or is that just
No,
generic?
that's coming. We're having to adjust the study, and that's the reason we're not prepared, because the study needed to be adjusted. And also, there's a 3 mil ad valorem that'll have to be charged as well, and that's a difference than the last one as well.
So will it be spelled out? What I'm concerned is that the citizens of Panacea understand how much they're going to be paying
Absolutely.
in order to
Absolutely.
subsidize their government.
Absolutely.
They will, it's my understanding, and I've banged this around on Mark several times, before they're ever charged a dime, they will approve it by a vote.
Absolutely.
That's simple as anything,
Absolutely.
giving them the right to vote.
That's right. And if they decide that they don't want that, then that's fine. We just want to let the citizens have their opportunity to make that decision.
And so, if I might, and I guess this is to you, Mark, my concern is, I don't think there's a problem with anyone here in the county that Panacea citizens vote whether they want to or not incorporate. I think what I'm concerned about, I know what I'm concerned about, is that the citizens understand the cost to them
Yes,
as an
sir.
individual citizen, and that
Yes,
it's
sir.
spelled out clearly, like it was in the past with that $11 per meter.
Absolutely,
Okay.
it will be.
Okay.
Absolutely.
And we'll have that prior to the next meeting.
Absolutely, that's what I was just going to say.
Yeah.
But this
You'll know
resolution
that.
does not, all it does is say, we're not opposed to you trying to incorporate.
That's
It
correct.
doesn't say, we don't care how you get your money.
We agree with your budget or anything.
All it does is in the resolution, it'll state it's based upon our understanding of moving forward with the funding mechanism.
Because you know my position's been as long as...
That's
you
right,
know.
but it has to, it'll say, based upon the understanding of funding, we'll move forward at this point.
So, Mr. Edwards, when this resolution does come forward, and we're looking at revenue neutral to the county, you'll provide the board with how it affects positively or adversely in all the different areas.
Yes, sir. I will, just like I did last year, it's the same deal as we had last year. It's the same program, which of that, we get 100% of the PST and the CST. We get 75% of the state revenue sharing, and we're going to get back 26% of the half-cent sales tax, or may have those reversed. But that was what we had factored in. That was our portion of those. So they're able to, so therefore you'll see that, but I'll explain all that out. I'll put it on a spreadsheet, I'll put it in a document, and you'll have all that, just like last time.
Very good. Any other discussion? Thank you, Mr. Mitchell.
Okay, thank y'all.
Thank you. Thank you. Mary Dean, are you here to present on behalf of the sheriff? Okay, very good.
Just deposit the check.
And I added one brief announcement. The Historical Society is having an open house tomorrow at 7 p.m., so I'd like to invite everyone to attend. They've got some new exhibits. I was able to see those on Saturday, so
Sneak peek, huh?
yeah, it's good. Well, it was open to the public on Saturday as well, so I took advantage of it. Check that out.
Mr. Chairman, the time for that is actually going to be from 6 to 7:30 tomorrow.
To 7:30 tomorrow.
Yes.
Come on out if you can. That ends our awards and presentation.
I'll move consent.
Second the motion.
Second, and that was with 7, 8, and 10 being pulled. Any discussion?
The two add-on items.
And yes, add-on for Big Ben, and Scrap and Scop is added to consent. Good with your motion?
Yep.
Second? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Passes 5-0. Okay, so we'll move to consent item number 7. Request board approval to use the Wakulla County Drug Trust Fund to purchase surveillance equipment.
In the amount of $15,000 for community support and
crime prevention. I think, Dr. Kessler, you had pulled this item.
I did. And so I'm looking at what, what the surveillance equipment is, where is it going to be used? And basically, my questions for that are the same as 4.8.
Okay. Mary Dean?
This is undercover equipment, and that's going to be used in our detectives, in our crime prevention program. And so the reason it's not spelled out is for the obvious reasons.
So this is not the body cameras we've been hearing about?
No, this is not.
Oh, the
This is
highway.
money from the Drug Trust Fund,
Okay.
forfeited drug seizure money.
So it's surveillance equipment, you'd rather not say exactly what it is.
Exactly.
I make a motion to approve.
I'll make if you'll amend your motion, Howard, if it's okay with you, 7 and 8.
Yes.
Will you amend your motion for 7 and 8? Approval of 7 and 8?
Yes.
I'll second that
Both
then.
for surveillance equipment. We have a first and a second. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Passes 5-0. Item number 10. Randy, I believe you
Yeah.
pulled that one?
This is the waste tire. I know it's just a advertisement, but I want to go ahead and try to catch a couple things right now. One of the definitions says waste tire means a tire that's been removed from a motor vehicle and has not been retreaded. The term includes but is not limited to used tires and processed tires. And Louis already said he's going to change it, but if we leave it the way it is now, anybody around here selling used tires, which a lot of people do, would fall under this ordinance. I don't think that was the intention of it. I think he can just tweak the definition of waste tire when it comes back. Louis?
Yeah, that's correct. And we've also had some other concerns raised by other commissioners
Okay,
about the
one more
definition.
concern I had, I just want to go ahead and voice it, is it says no more than 8 waste tires shall be stored in any location within the county. I would go around and talk to these reputable shops in the county. I think you'd find that they typically at any one time have more than 8 tires. If they're a tire store, they may accumulate upwards of 20 or 30 before the recycler comes and picks them up. I just would encourage you to reach out. I know, I said before recyclers come and pick them up.
No, if they're a drop-off site.
No, I'm not talking about a drop-off
Like
site.
a
If you're someone that
tire
sells
store.
tires,
That's 2 vehicles, 8 tires, and then they're
Yes.
at their limit.
Yeah.
Well, if they're
Not
a
a
collection
recycling.
center or anything like
No,
that, it's
they're-
already.
they're not that.
They're not
No.
governed by state law. They're not.
They're not a recycling center.
No,
Okay.
It's broader than that, but okay.
Mr. Hollis, I'll defend Mr. Hollis. He sells tires.
Well, I was thinking of the Crawford Auto Mart. I mean,
Yeah.
they are the Daryl's place when he used to sell tires. He'd have 20 or 30 stacked up.
We got all those are stacked in front of Big A tires there in Rascals, you know. I mean, how is that going to fall under?
Yeah, that would be covered under what I mentioned earlier, but what I was just asking is to go to the shops. They're not selling these used tires, but they may accumulate more than 8 at one time, and we don't want to cause them undue burden by just all of a sudden changing the rule and they're not in compliance.
Well, just for information purposes, if you have a homeowner that has an accumulation of tires, where can he take those tires to?
This doesn't really cover that. I
We don't
think
have a landfill or anywhere for them to take them.
Well,
So,
landfill still takes them, but they charge. You have to pay for those. How about if you make the distinction between a retail establishment with a retail license? Now that's one person who can keep his tires on site and continue to move them in and out, as opposed to maybe a homeowner who just sort of piles them up on the
I
side.
think this was more generated towards homeowners anyway. But anyway, those are just things for him to think about.
I've got a suggested definition of waste tire, which I think will address both of those. A tire that is no longer mounted on a vehicle and is no longer suitable for use as a vehicle tire due to wear, damage, or deviation from the manufacturer's original specifications.
I'll let him take that into consideration. I could see somebody arguing and saying that tire's perfectly fine. Nothing wrong with it. It's bald, but
Well,
I'll use it.
I want to add something else, and number two, not with this, but just want to make it known. You know, I mean, of course, there is homeowners that have accumulation of tires, but this is also complaint driven as well, right? I mean, that this only gets activated as a result of a complaint.
Yes,
I mean,
that's
so it's
Still, we don't want to say somebody complain against Joey Faircloth
Right.
place, because Joey's got 10 tires behind his place. Y'all need to go give him a ticket.
That's what I'm not wanting to happen.
Right, exactly.
You know, because I still believe.
And Heather, maybe you can use your lawyer skills and come up with some definition that exempts them that we could add in here.
We can. Now, and a waste tire collection site is a site where waste tires are collected from the public prior to being offered for recycling or moved to the recycling, and they have fewer than 1,500 tires on site at any day, they're already exempt. But we'll make sure that that's broad enough to encompass all of the
I don't know if that-
scenarios the board's considering.
I don't know if that covers someone that simply sells tires and then taking the old tires and holding them. If it does, good for you.
It does. That's exactly what that is.
Okay.
I would also like to suggest that we include a definition of processed tires. And we've got a park on Old Woodville Highway. It's not a county park, but they have a rubber tire mulch play area. And so when I read this, the first thing I thought is that would not be allowable because it's a processed tire product, and we don't have a definition of processed tires.
It'd take a long time to count up how many chips it took to add up to 8 tires.
Yeah, a good engineer could do that, so we can.
Good lawyer.
We can call you. So I think it'd be simple to add that definition and make sure that, like Tom Brown Park, for example, there's processed tire products all over that park, and we need to determine, is that our intent to exclude that or allow that?
I'll move to approve the public hearing. Schedule it.
I second it.
And it's important to note that all we're doing is moving that forward. We're not making these decisions
Right.
tonight,
Yeah.
so we can take
There's a lot of variables, a lot of things, and I'm not wanting to cause any undue hardship to those homeowners that do happen to have an accumulation of tires that are just out of sight, out of mind. They're not being visibly seen or anything like that. So anyway, so I'm in agreement with moving this forward as public hearing.
So, Mr. Cerna, the intent of this, of the whole issue with old tires and having them processed is driven by what?
It's a large part driven by mosquito water accumulating in the tires and creating a breeding ground for mosquitoes, and tires being dumped in the forest. So yeah, we definitely don't. That's what we want to address. We definitely don't want to cause an undue hardship for others.
Right. So if that's the target, then it definitely goes to any kind of situation where tires are just stacked, collecting water, and even though they may be good tires, we don't want tires. And then I spoke with you during the conference we had today with the decorative tires that are used for fencing, buried into the ground. There's no water collection per se in the tire. That will be addressed.
Yeah, it was not the intent to include those under this ordinance, so yeah, we will address
So
that.
the language will exempt those.
Yes.
And I also agree with Commissioner Kessler on that. There's several little small parks in the county that do have decorative tires, and they're incorporated in a lot of ways, and we don't want to cause any undue there either.
Kind of like a decorative rake, I guess. Anyway.
Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Passes 5-0. That ends our consent. We'll move into general business, tab number 14.
This agenda item, Mary Dean, you want to get up and address this? This agenda item requests board approval of 2014-15 budget amendment to add 1 full-time position.
Motion to approve.
Second.
No citizens, any discussion?
Discussion.
Yes, sir.
So, is this what we have in front of us right now, a budget amendment?
This is.
Yes.
And so, is there normally not a resolution that accompanies a budget amendment?
There are, but we've talked to the clerk, and the clerk is okay with this form of amendment. Right. Okay.
Okay, so the reserves, okay, so I was just told that the resolution would only be necessary if it was increasing the budget other than from reserves. So these reserves reside with the sheriff? Okay, so then I guess my question would be to Mary Dean. So, I'm concerned that, and I know we spoke this morning, and congratulations.
Thank you.
That we're 2 months into a budget year, and we're asking for a budget amendment. But have you done the math to assure that you will stay within your fund, the budget of your fund?
You talking about for the remainder of the year, if these dollars are allocated to us?
Yeah, we're looking, this is a non-renewable, or whatever I want to call it. I'm not saying the right word, but this is something, a non-recurring. This is a one-time.
That will be a question you'll have to ask of the budget directors of the county. We're asking...
You are asking for it to be a recurring expense.
Yes, we are
not a
asking
one-time.
to add,
Oh.
we are asking to add one
So-
full-time position
so can
to
your-
our existing budget.
So you're going to draw down your reserves?
The county will draw down its reserves.
No, the fine and forfeiture will draw down its reserve, and that's their job, and they're responsible for the fine and forfeiture fund.
I hear a little uneasiness between the two parties
Well,
here. Who's drawing down this
The
reserve?
Sheriff's Department is requesting to draw down the fine and forfeiture fund reserve by $60,000. We gave them a $100,000 reserve. Now, that doesn't guarantee, this is what the Sheriff's Departments are playing statewide, as I told you. This is a game. What they're doing is they're saying, I'm going to increase my budget over the year so I don't have to come back at the end. So, it's okay if they do this, but understand, just because they're raising $60,000, you guys, if we don't have it and it's not an increase, you don't have to give them that money at the end of the year when the budget time comes around. All you're doing is right now is saying, yes, for this year, y'all can tap into those reserves. That's all this means.
So it seems like, it seems like the Sheriff's Department, who's drawing down your reserves, has to really pay attention to this, or else...
They're responsible and in charge of this fund,
There's
yes.
a fundamental difference of opinion on funding the Sheriff's Department. It's not going to be resolved tonight, I can tell you
This
that.
has nothing, it's
It's a
really...
fundamental difference.
They're in charge of the fine and forfeiture fund. They were assigned a $100,000 reserve. If they feel like they can sustain that into the future and they can drive into that fund at this point in time and be okay, that's up to them.
This goes back to the argument I had made before, the fundamental difference between, do we tell the sheriff how much money they can get, or do they tell us what they need and we figure out how to get it to them? I don't mind this, agreeing with this increase, but I still stand on the side that we tell the Sheriff's Department, here's how much money you had to operate. But I'm fine with this.
Yeah,
Mary
it's
doesn't
good.
agree with me, I'll go ahead and tell you that right now, but that's fine, I still like her.
So have you done the math on this to see whether you can sustain this type of spending? Or are you anticipating coming back to the county and asking for more money?
We're basing this on need, and we need this position.
Sounds like Congress. Thank you.
Any further
David,
discussion?
I got a question for David. Let's
Mhm.
assume for a second that you're right.
Mm-hmm.
Is this sustainable long-term? And I know that depends a lot on the jail bed revenue, is that correct?
There's a lot, that the jail bed revenue depends on that, as well as our ad valorem taxes continuing to rise. There's a lot of factors involved there, so...
If everything worked out in a perfect world, Greg was happy, you were happy, this would be sustainable. Is that correct?
Yeah.
Okay.
And you know, the 100,000 was put in there in case the 100,000, this is what we were told. If we put the 100,000 there, that was in case something happened with the armor and we had increased medical costs. So, therefore, the burden gets back on the sheriff that if the armor does have a problem, they're going to have to come up with that funding because they only got $40,000 left.
Okay. But we'll get through tonight.
Okay, yeah, that's right. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Passes 5-0.
All right, tab number 15.
Commissioners, this item is for the request for reduction of forgiveness of code enforcement liens. Paige is handing out to you the code section that references the criteria for reduction in the liens.
I'll make a motion we approve the reduced application down to hard costs associated with processing the case in the amount of $1,583.50.
Is there somebody here from representing the property owner who would like to, because we do need to hear a justification about, I mean, to satisfy our code, we generally have a property owner.
Randy, I'll ask you a question, really. This is a Fannie Mae loan. There's nobody here tonight representing Fannie Mae. They have gone overboard in order to reach out to Fannie Mae. Their representative, are you Yeah, that buyer will not have anything to do with this lien, though.
I talked to the buyer, I just happen to know him, and the lien, I guess, Susan, can I ask Susan to come up here? You can answer a couple questions, right? So I'm not gonna put you on the spot, don't worry. How much is the place worth today? I mean, is this a significant, this $24,000 lien, $25,000, is that a significant amount of what the property's actually worth? In other words, would it ever sell with the full lien amount on it?
No. It is a one-bedroom, one-bath in Wakulla Gardens. It's worth about $11,000 to $12,000.
And so, in other words, if this lien is not reduced, it's just gonna languish there. We can file foreclosure on it. The property's just gonna keep getting, I think we get our hard costs back, which is the money we spent. Let's put it back on the market, have somebody start paying taxes on it again. That's just my thought.
And just to reinforce, it's physically listed, or was, $13,500. And that's what they're trying to get, the seller's trying to get. Our property appraiser has the market value at $15,644. So I think Susan is very, very accurate in the numbers that she's given us.
So a
If we put-
$10,000 house with a $25,000 lien on it,
That
it's
means
gonna
we're
sit there.
going to have a blighted property that no one's going to want to buy, and we're going to eventually have to foreclose and clean it up.
It's already in compliance.
Okay. very
I mean,
good.
he's saying if it sits there for a long time and...
But it's in compliance. I'm not talking about the buyer. I'm talking about, can we charge Fannie Mae this money? They owe it. It's not the
We are
buyer.
recovering our hard costs, which is any money that taxpayers put out of their pocket to prosecute this case.
I can say this because I've been in discussions. We've been weeks trying to figure this out and going back and forth that this is not a enforceable lien, is what Fannie Mae is saying, and then
No, it is. There's a recent
I'm,
court
I'm,
case.
I'm coming to you, and then the county attorney has found that it is an enforceable lien, but Fannie Mae basically, I think I can't speak for them. This is just an email correspondence. They're taking the stance that it's still not enforceable, even though the information has been provided.
Don't shoot the messenger.
Well,
And-
I guess basically I'll go along with Randy. If it's been cleaned up, if we can get our hard cost, let's get on down the road with it.
I think even I mean it can easily be argued both sides, but I think we do need to be consistent with what it is we're doing. And one thing we've been consistent about is with the last about dozen is just recovering our hard costs, and it's happened I think twice already just in the last 6 months or so that we've had it to where it did belong to a bank, and the bank was asking the same thing, but we still stayed consistent what we were doing when everyone had just recovered our
I think the
our
goal
hard costs.
is
So I'm for the 15.
for the benefit of the neighborhood, to clean the property up, to eliminate any dangerous nuisances, and keep their property values consistent. That's the goal, is to get it cleaned up, and that's what happened here. And if we get our money back, the citizens' money back, I'm happy with it.
It goes back on tax roll.
And it's important to note that Fannie Mae's the current owner, but they did not cause the problem. They took ownership of the property August 14th of this year. They cleaned up the property, and so they increased the neighborhood, so I agree with the hard cost.
Go ahead, Commissioner.
Thanks, Sue.
Thank you. Yes, please fill out a card. Okay.
You want me to fill out a card?
No, sir. Unless you want to.
Well, I want to speak, though.
Yes, sir, please.
Okay. So, as I understand, and I've had computer trouble today, and I'm not able to access my notes, but I'll rely on staff to help me. This is not the same as as the majority of other cases that we've looked at. This owner had, what, a year in non-compliance, the same. It wasn't like someone took over this thing and had a year's fines on them.
Well, their judgment of foreclosure that they got was on October 2nd, 2013. For whatever reason, they delayed the actual judicial sale until, as Commissioner Thomas mentioned, until August of this year. So there is that period, in between those two dates where our lien attached.
So they physically took ownership August of this year.
Well, they purposely did that. That was their choosing.
Yeah, I hear that.
They delayed the the judicial sale could have taken place in 2013. I don't know why it
Which
did
we
not. I
know
can't possibly-
attorneys do drag out court cases. That's not unheard of.
It's attorney night.
No, because the final judgment was in October of 2013. It was the judicial sale that was delayed for whatever reason. Not
So the judgment was there.
Yeah.
They chose not to execute,
that.
basically.
I don't know why it was delayed.
Right, we don't know why they did that.
Can we
And I-
assume they complied with the law in those actions?
What was that?
Can we assume that whatever they did between that year's time, that they were in compliance with what was allowable under the law?
I would assume. I don't know of any reason
Right.
to call them into question.
Okay.
So there was a period of time, about 1 month period of time. Could you clarify that?
Oh, well, the 1 month I think you're referring to, the judicial sale was on August 14th, 2014, and then the property was brought into compliance about a month later, September 15th,
Right.
2014.
And they knew that this situation existed for the better
lien-
part of a year.
The lien was of record as of February of 2014, so they knew the lien was there when the judicial sale went through.
Okay.
Maybe in Fannie Mae?
Yes.
Whoever. And so, I think there's an obligation on their part to at least own up to that 1 month that they did not take action of doing their thing. So, and I think that would come to a few $1,000s or more rather than the $25,000. But every time we say that the hard cost of the county, I think the county always goes into the hole.
Now, I had suggested, just in a more general note, maybe we should change that to hard cost plus 10 or 20%. I think that
I can agree with that.
I think that would be a good...
And that's in your discretion, because you have the discretion whether to forgive
Well, I'd rather be consistent.
or anything in between.
I think
Once
we
we
need
have
to
a
be
policy in
consistent.
place, then fine, we'll follow suit. But
Randy, I agree with you on that. Just getting our hard costs lets everybody off, off the hook. But if you put an extra 20% on there, there's a lot of...
And make that the floor, not on this particular item, I'm just talking in general, but if we had a policy that we follow that the minimum you're going to pay for a code enforcement lien is hard cost plus 10, plus 15, then we have to follow that policy ourselves.
Well,
I-
that policy is for you all to set. That's
I know,
not something
I know.
that's going to be written down.
No, I
That's
know.
something
I agree
guys
with you,
can
though.
set it tonight and
If
move
we do
forward,
the,
or set it next time and move forward.
If we do the 1,500 tonight, which I'm in favor of doing, if we do the 1,500 tonight, we'll be consistent with what it is we've been
Right,
doing
exactly,
in recent
exactly,
months.
exactly.
If we want to do something different, we can do it forward. But I'm for the 1,500 because it's consistent. The county will get its hard cost, and we have a consistency.
So, Attorney, how do we go, what is the difference of changing what we're doing tonight as of changing it in next meeting when we have a similar situation like this?
That's what I'm saying. If you want, you've mentioned it before, hard costs plus 10, 15, 20%. There's no magic place we have to write that down in order to change that. You guys could start setting a new policy tonight or in any one of these actions.
Does it take all 5 to approve
No.
that?
No, it's a
Just
majority
a majority?
vote.
I would then make a motion that we take our hard cost plus...
We have a motion.
I'm going to leave it the way it is. I would like to talk about this, but I'd prefer to have I'll bring back an agenda item if you want, and just say the board's going to set the policy from now on that it's this and that, because...
Well, and another thing too, I want us to just stick to what we're doing here tonight as far as 1,500. If we're gonna begin adding the 10%, then that's something that may need to that particular case needs to revert back through the code board before it comes back.
It may
to
be
us with
different
the
if it's
10%.
a $10 lien or if it's a $100,000 lien. We may want to make it a sliding scale. I don't want to make it a decision right now on
So
that.
you're going to bring it back as an
I'll bring it
agenda
back
item.
as agenda.
So who would pay for this?
The property owner would be obligated to pay for it before we would release
Right,
that
and the
lien.
property owner, I think, was identified as being a friend of one of the commissioners, or
No.
knowing
No,
of.
Fannie Mae.
no. The
Fannie Mae's the property.
Fannie Mae's property. I believe
Okay.
that the person that Commissioner Merritt spoke to is interested in buying the
Correct.
property from the
Okay.
property owner.
Okay, well, it still enters into the mix, I guess. I don't know. I don't think this is a good thing. I think if we're going to take Commissioner Moore's suggestion, which I think is a very good one, we should start it now.
I don't think you can start it now. This animal's already out of the barn for this transaction. We start it before the next one comes available.
I think we need to be consistent and set a policy.
I don't know if you're insinuating, Howard, that I'm trying to benefit somebody that I know, but that's not the case.
Right. I'm just repeating what I hear. So,
I said it.
I'm not insinuating anything. I'm just trying to repeat what's being said.
Now, that being said, do you mean what I just came out of my mouth, or somebody else told you? You said you're repeating what's being said. Are you repeating what I said, or are you repeating what somebody else said?
Okay. I'm trying to understand why we cannot, as a board, put forward Commissioner Moore's suggestion at this meeting rather than wait till the next meeting. This horse is not out of the barn. It's up to us to decide whether we want to enforce the $25,000 of the lien or $1,500 of the lien or anything in between that. It's our decision every time one of these comes before us. Every time. And we have that discretion and we have that authority.
I'll withdraw mine for this
My
session.
motion was on the floor anyway.
And let,
Who seconded that?
Nobody yet, I'm still waiting.
Okay.
I'll second
Well,
it.
we have a first and a second. Any further
Second it.
discussion?
And let me clarify, we've said 1,500, the
I read the number off
recommendation is
exactly.
1,580.
Yeah.
Okay.
Right, Randy?
Was there an administrative fee that wasn't included?
The 150, hold on, let me verify if that...
That has not been paid
It was not
yet.
included. It's not included in the 1,500. I did check that.
Well,
Oh,
that's
it's
all.
not? Well, then,
So we
they
need to
have
add
to pay
that
the
fee.
150 on top of
Okay,
that.
well, I'll make the motion, I'll amend my motion to include that
I second.
150 then.
That-
Richard's
that
already
was that
seconded.
anyway.
I'm second.
Okay, so we have a first and second. Any discussion?
Randy, you get that with the 150?
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed?
Aye.
Passes 4-1. Next, tab 16.
Tab 16, enterprise zones. Louis?
Yes, Commissioners, a while back, actually March of 2012, the board directed us to look at the enterprise zone boundaries, and because of changes through the legislature, through the enterprise zone, we didn't move on this sooner, and it took us a while to get the GIS information to you, but we do have that information pretty detailed on where our enterprise zones are and what they include, and what we're looking for is for board direction to come back to you at a later date and identify specific areas where we would like to take areas that will not develop or should not develop that are in the enterprise zone, take those areas out and add them to Crawfordville is our recommendation, but there may be other commercial nodes that we could look at.
What kind of direction do you need, Lou? What areas to look at?
Oh, she had more to say.
Yeah, what types of properties to look at for exclusion and where to look at adding them
Crazy.
to, just generally.
Is she crazy?
And then we can come back, waiting until after the next legislative session to make sure nothing changes with enterprise zones at the state level. But we will also come back with the specific parcels. But yeah, just generally, for example, we've identified V zones, low-density districts in the comp plan, and wetland areas specifically. Look at those parcels and take those out, add them to Crawfordville is the area we're recommending, but there may be other commercial nodes. But
I found something interesting. Louis had told me, I didn't know this, that if an employer has a person that lives in an enterprise zone, they get a benefit, some sort of tax credit, right?
that's correct. So
So if
we
we
want to
have
include
Wakulla
residential
Gardens, for
areas.
example, in this enterprise zone that has a lot more dense population, I'm just thinking out loud, instead of a marsh in Panacea, that would be more of an incentive for that person to hire people to work instead of just being wasted on a marsh that's never going to be developed. So I think this is a great idea, but I don't personally want to be the one to say take it away from this area and put it in that area, because that's going to hurt somebody's feelings.
Well, I think we can take away a significant amount that's unusable anyway, if we just take out the V zones and the flood zones and the wetlands areas.
Well, let me give you an example. There's a pretty big swipe that runs from Arlo Kelly's place up to Gulf Coast. That's probably never going to be commercial, you know.
Don't count on that.
Well,
we basically have one street that's going to be commercial, and we're talking about 50 years down the road.
that's why I said probably somebody's feelings will get hurt, and that's why I don't want to be the one to
Yeah.
say specific properties. But, and that was just my thought. So I guess, Louis, yes, I would encourage you to take those areas out that you know aren't going to be usable.
Right. We'll do that.
We need to spread out more east and west, Jerry. The problem is it's one little corridor that follows 319, and we really need to go outward also. Encourage.
That sounds good.
Do we have a motion?
Do we need, you just want staff direction, or you want a motion?
Yeah, and we've provided the options, so you may want to look at option 1 is what
I'll
we're
move
recommending.
option 1 then, which is direct staff prepare resolution, modify enterprise zone boundaries.
I would say for certain as it applies to V zones and unbuildable zones that are unbuildable.
Now, see, somebody like Chuck Shields would have a real problem with that because he's not in this, but I'm saying there are V zones that generate a lot of commercial development.
Well, and we're just because you say V zones doesn't mean we're going to exclude all V zones or even all wetland areas. St. Mark's Powder, for example, has a lot of wetland areas. But, you know, we're going to come back. This is just general direction that we're looking for, and we'll come back with the specific parcels. And we know that's going to be a whole new exercise.
All right. A long one.
We got a first. We don't have a second, but I'd like to make a comment that, in case everyone doesn't know, this statute in the state is scheduled to sunset. So if the legislature does not pick this up and move it forward, the entire enterprise zones dies in the state of Florida. That's part of the priorities that we have established with the Small County Coalition and Florida Association of Counties, is to keep it alive or to try to tailor it to rural counties so it still benefits us. I would recommend, I'm for this, I'm for staff doing this, but it might be wise for us to wait and see what position Enterprise Florida takes first.
I agree with you.
They're gonna march that forward at the legislature, and so I'd hate for you to spend an enormous amount of time restructuring this and then it just dies anyway.
I was reading the agenda item. It says now that staff is confident that the program will continue into the foreseeable future. Yes, they're probably
they got a different crystal ball than we do.
They must have
more confident.
Well, this was from 2012, and every year it's we've delayed it. And we're not going to come back before we know what the legislature is going to do.
Year? Okay. But this is the first real sunset.
This is the first real sunset.
Yeah, I think it would be prudent then to wait if it's.
Yeah.
This is not a brush fire important item.
Oh no, we're not going to bring you back anything before we know. But
you're going to do it if you don't have anything else to do that day in the office. You're
at least get that.
They got plenty to do.
Yeah.
So, Louis.
I'll withdraw my motion then. Sorry.
So Louis, on the I think it's a good thing for you to look at those portions of the enterprise zone that you feel should come out and address those. I don't think that's a huge task. At the same time, I think there's probably a very big difference of view on the enterprise zone especially in the rural county. Okay, our enterprise zone is terrible. It's someone made a mention that it was one street. Well, it's this continuing forever long strip of enterprise zone, and it doesn't do anyone any good except encourage sprawl up and down 319. And we have to be careful when we look to broaden it, that we broaden it in a way that is good for our county, and not just make it a county all exclusive east to west.
Mm-hmm. So I had withdrew my motion, Louis. I mean, do you still want the motion to direct you to go ahead and work on it, even though we don't know if it's going to pass?
Yeah, well, we'd like the direction, because it is going to take a long time to identify the parcels and get it to you, and there's going to be a lot of discussion, so we'd like the direction. Now, we're not going to make this our top priority, but like I said, this was from 2012.
I'll make that motion, at least motion 1, to get it ready, and
at least you know when we come back, you know where we're headed, and we've had some direction from you.
I would basically, I would say let's wait on the state legislature. Let's don't do any work if it's going to be moot.
Let's just make that part of the motion.
Pardon?
We can make that part of the motion, and he's acknowledged that he doesn't want.
Oh yeah, I don't want to waste my efforts either.
I'll second. Howard is going to amend his motion.
Yeah, that's fine.
So we have a first and second. Any other discussion?
You got that amendment, Brandy, that was just made quietly?
You read it into the record, please.
It's It's taking two ladies over there full time to keep up.
Everyone did it by
Okay,
themselves.
I'm sorry, Chairman.
Let's call for the vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Passes 5-0. Next, tab 18.
Tab 18, this agenda item requests board approval of letter of support for the Florida Department of Transportation.
So moved.
Okay.
I second it.
You can go ahead and finish now. I'm
Any
sorry.
citizens? Any discussion?
Go ahead, David, I'm sorry.
No, that's okay.
Well, at least the citizens would want to
Yes,
know.
this is FDOT is requesting a letter, requesting modification to the National Highway System to add portions of US 319 in Wakulla County to that system. What this allows us, it basically opens up for FDOT more federal funds to fund planning and engineering, acquisition, and construction as possibilities for future funding.
It's called US 319, but it's actually not on the national highway system.
Right, exactly.
But if it got on the national highway system, I think it would help us tremendously.
Yeah.
My only question I asked today, is there any negative impact? Is it
According
going to change
to
construction
Brian-
standards? Are we going to be, under the thumb of the federal government that we've got to change our policies or cost? Or
According to Bryant Park, no, that there's with what we're currently planning in the Crawfordville area fits in with the federal standards. So he said it won't change anything with what we've done so far.
And this doesn't put it on it, this is just a letter
That's
request?
right.
supporting
That's
DOT requesting.
And DOT is requesting the same thing out of Leon County
Right.
for the section between I-10 and the airport.
Very good.
And then there was similar concerns of,
Yep, that you had.
I know the pros, I just don't know the cons, and I hope there are not any cons to this.
Okay.
Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Passes 5-0. That ends our general business. The first commissioner item is mine, tab 17. We have a request board approval of commissioner appointments on various committees, councils, and boards for 2015.
Can I make a couple comments before we have a motion? I believe the subcommittee of the ARPC Transportation Disadvantaged Local Coordinating Board, is that that's now handled by the CRTPA, the local transportation disadvantaged. CRT, I mean the Regional Planning Council doesn't handle it. In other words, Jerry, have you ever been to a meeting for that?
Pardon?
You ever been to one of the meetings for that? You're the
Almost all of them but one.
okay. Because I don't. It's run by the CRTPA now. It's not even, so that committee doesn't exist. Is what I'm saying.
I can go along with that.
It doesn't exist. The Regional Planning Council doesn't handle transportation disadvantaged.
We'll verify that.
Mm-hmm.
Trust me.
Any other
You can
comments?
you can trust but verify.
All right. Randy, you got any others?
Oh,
I got one in just a second.
I got
All right.
one more. Jerry, this is just to ask of you personally. I know you and I just went through an election. Would you mind relinquishing the alternate to the CRTPA? I know you've never been to a meeting because I don't ever miss any of the meetings, but it wouldn't mean anything to you. You would have to change anything different if Ralph or Howard or Richard wanted to do that, or do you want to keep doing that?
I'll keep it.
Okay.
One I wanted to ask about was I'm good with everything that I've been on. I've tried to attend, everything, but there's one that I haven't been able to attend because that's the Big Bend Continuum of Care Board that makes up 8 counties. But with that one, the time frame that they hold those meetings, they hold them like in Tallahassee, like at 9 and 10 o'clock in the morning. And whenever I work in Franklin County, it causes a hardship trying to get the time off in order to be those. All of the other ones I'm able to do, but that particular one I have not been able to make their meetings as much as I wanted to be. But I do feel like Wakulla needed to be represented there, and wanted to ask if there's another commissioner that might have more flexibility of time that would want to take that one on.
And they meet monthly?
Yes.
what is that?
That's the Big
Big
Bend.
Bend Continuum of Care
That's
Board.
it's mainly.
It says one commissioner or his appointee, preferably a doctor. No, I'm just kidding.
Well, it says at the bottom, it says the purpose of this board is to develop and implement strategies to help end homelessness, which is end homelessness in the Big Bend, which is something that is very important. But I do feel that we need to have someone there, and I'm at a loss of being able to make that meeting whenever they hold it. So if there's
I'd be happy to contact that number and see if it can fit into my schedule.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Also the DCF Circuit 2 Community Alliance, Jessica, that doesn't have to be a commissioner, does it? Howard's on it, if you want, but you're saying it doesn't have to be a commissioner, it just says county representative, it could be any of it.
Right, and I called that number several times, have not gotten a call back, because the thing that I'm concerned about with my schedule is my clinics that I volunteer at, and that's the sticking point with me. So I have to make sure that even with the one that Commissioner Harden would like some help with, that it can fit within my schedule.
It could be somebody from the clerk's office, right?
It could be a staff person, it could be a commissioner.
I'm just throwing that out there, I didn't know if you
Yeah,
knew that
well,
it didn't have to be a commissioner.
I will continue to try to contact Gina Olson, and I'll also contact Susan Burke, however you say that name, and if they fall within a time frame that I can accommodate, I will let the administration know.
And this Big Bend Regional Partnership that I'm on, nobody's ever called me about going into those meetings either, just while we're all full disclosure.
What is that?
Big Bend Regional Partnership, you're supposed to meet at the end of January. It says that most active members are Wakulla, Jefferson, Madison, Monticello, Gadsden, Quincy, Leon, and Tallahassee, which is basically the members of the CRTPA.
Which we have through a MOU.
What it says, but I've never been contacted about the meeting.
Okay.
And the audit committee, Ralph, you're going to be diligent. Going to every one of those, right? It's very important.
I will. All right, any other recommended changes?
Well, I have just a question for clarification. So, are we going to put Commissioner Kessler on those committees and then take you off if it doesn't work? Is that how we're going to do that?
You can, if that satisfies for this evening, that's fine with me, and I'll just notify administration whether I can or cannot
Okay.
do that.
Does
I'll
that
make,
work?
well, you're chairman, you can't make the motion. I'll make the motion to approve with those changes, if that's all of them.
I was taking the motion.
All right, any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Passes 5-0. All right, let's see. I think that's it for our scheduled commissioner agenda items. County attorney, anything for us tonight?
Nothing.
County administrator?
Yes, I have a couple of things. I was contacted by Bryant Park with DOT concerning a meeting that was discussed at the latest CRTPA meeting that some residents had requested a meeting with FDOT representatives to answer some questions on the 319-98 intersection. DOT is willing and ready and willing to do the workshop, or not the workshop, but the meeting. They just wanted to make sure that whether you wanted to have it at a workshop, a county county workshop, or they hold their own meeting within the county.
I would be in favor of them holding their own meeting in the
Okay.
county and not doing it through a county workshop. I think
Okay.
they need to have their own meeting.
Okay, how about you, Commissioner Moore? You good with that?
I agree.
I agree.
Okay, good. All right, next thing is our tentative 5-year work plan, FDOT work plan has been released, and we have we have very good news. Could you blow that up just a little bit? As you can see, this map represents, this map that's up on the board represents what is in the FDOT work plan. As you can see, we have that's National Forest there.
Richard could take credit for that bridge in Smith Creek. That's what I was trying to remember earlier.
Right. Basically, as you can see, DOT has added in funding for construction of 319, of the 4-laning of 319. Therefore, the way it looks right now from the Leon County line all the way into East Ivan Road, DOT is in the process, and to have that constructed, and as per this plan in 2016 or 2018, excuse me. DOT advanced a lot of funds, and this is their request. It's not the final one, but this is a request. There's quite a bit of a lot of our funding now is going into the 4-laning of 319. Also, Woodville Highway will be resurfaced. That'll be in 2016, as well as bridge replacements in Lawhorn Mill. So DOT has been very generous to us. We have we've got this. We'll put this on the website. Commissioners will also be giving you a big rollout map of this, so that you can take it. It'll look like that, so that you can talk to your constituents and show them what's going on. I'd like to thank Preble Rish and Rob Davis for pulling all this together for us. Naturally, they get a lot of the funding for our scrap and scop. They do all our engineering, etc., for scrap and scop. But we appreciate them pulling this together.
The 4-laning won't be done in 2018. It'll be started.
It'll be started. I'm sorry. Construction
It will be
dollars.
the 4-laning of coming from Capitol Circle pretty much south to what, East Ivan?
No.
No.
I want to go over it a little bit more.
Yes.
This is very, very important. I don't think David's stressing it hard enough. The DOT added a bunch of things to the 5-year work plan recently. Now, I'm not going to say that's because I got us on the list at the CRTPA, but if you want to say it, I'm not going to call you a liar. But what they added 3 sections of the Capital City to the Sea Trail, which is a bike trail going from the St. Mark's Trail past the high school all the way down to just south of the Medart Elementary School, right? In that area.
That's correct.
That's over 2018, 19, and 20, and those 3 phases are like 1.1, 1.5, and 1.8 million dollars for construction. It's construction money. They added the big thing they added was construction of 319. They're going to do it in 2 phases. One from East Ivan, which is north of Walmart, to Bloxham, then one from Bloxham north. They added, now this is very recently, added $17.4 million for construction in 2018 and $19 million for construction in 2000. That wasn't there a month ago. I mean, they just added that in there. Let's see, what else did they add, David? They funded redesign $2.8 million in 2017 to go from 98 up to the Lost Creek Bridge, to look at all that, to go ahead and design that whole thing. So we can only assume they're going to go ahead and advance right-of-way and construction money for that too. And then they added
19 north of Alaska Way as well.
Right. Well, that was already in there. That's the intersection.
But they added one in. Well, yeah, you're right.
That was already in there. That wasn't added. What they did add,
I don't have
though,
the ad here.
they added from Lost Creek to south of East Ivan, which is where they're going to start construction. They added $4 million for engineering. So they're going to go ahead and get all that done. Now, we also got our sidewalks funded, which this wasn't added, this was already on there, but a lot of people ask about these. They're at the senior center, $90,000, for construction in 2017, and the other one was in Panacea. They added that, which is the sidewalk from the apartment complex over to the post office, and that they allocated $180,000 for engineering in 2018 and $140,000 for construction. Now, I know the attorneys over there sitting there thinking, why does the engineer get more money than it costs to build the sidewalk? But that's just the way they work, I guess.
Well, that's right.
So it's a good day for us. I mean, this is really a big deal. I mean, remember Mike Stewart used to sit up here and say this would never happen in his lifetime, and Lord willing, it looks like it will.
You got to be careful about saying never. Basically, what you can take from Randy said there is that by 220, which is just around the corner, quite possibly a portion of 319 will be 3-laned or 4-laned.
4-lane.
4-laned, and the remainder will be under construction. So by 2020, it'll be a different environment. And if you travel 319 now, it's really something.
And I'm going to keep pushing as hard as we can on these sections they allocated. For example, through Crawfordville, which is Lost Creek to East Ivan, they got this $4 million for engineering. We'll keep pushing to try to go ahead and get right-of-way acquisition money advanced and construction money advanced.
Right, and this culminates, since we've been here and since this board's been on, this is a combination of staff bringing this up to the DOT and presenting plans, as well as you commissioners, Ralph and Randy, of being in the process and participating. All of a sudden, we're being seen and we're being talked about, and we're being engaged, and that's what we've tried to do, is engage and tell the story of Wakulla County and bring some of this money back to our citizens, and that was our whole goal. So therefore, this is a culmination. Now, we got to continue to press, but that was part of the plan. If you're not knocking on the door, you ain't gonna get in.
That's right.
Randy's been on the CRTPA,
being in the Army.
Capital Region Transportation Authority. He's been on that
That's
for
close
4
enough.
years, from 2010, and this year he's the chairman, so he has a lot of influence, and is partly responsible. If there's nobody up there speaking on your behalf, it'll go somewhere else. So Randy is primarily responsible. A huge part of this is to his involvement over the last 4 and going forward this year as chairman of
Past chairman, thank the Lord. Christian Dozier is the new chairperson.
Okay.
I don't want to
Anybody
call
got
her
any other
chairman.
questions on this?
We was talking about enterprise zone earlier, and whenever we eventually have a 4-lane road coming through an enterprise zone, we're gonna have a pretty good economic engine for our county.
Be a real game changer.
Yes.
Appreciate all your hard work on it.
Thank you.
Makes a difference.
Yes. The next thing on my agenda is I'd like to request board approval to allow us to close down BoCC offices,
I make a motion.
related
to
offices
approve.
at noon on December 24th.
Ooh.
What?
How about that? I'll second, Jerry.
Can just, as long as just,
Randy's getting ready to throw a pin at you.
You were in striking distance.
Got some ugly looks that time.
All right, we've got a first and second. Any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Passes 5-0.
Also, a reminder to commissioners and to the public that our next meeting is January 5th at 5 p.m. Okay. Also, Bostic Pelt paving, road paving will start tomorrow. So if whoever lives on Bostic Pelt,
They finally finished the bridge.
the bridge is done and the base work's done. Now they're going to start paving. And also, happy holidays to everyone.
And they're also, Richard, just for you, replacing the Smith Creek Bridge. They're going to repave 375 basically from South Choppy over to past the Hardens, right? Where the first
Right.
phase it was paved years ago, remember?
Right. Yes.
Up to the Cypress Creek Bridge, I think, just past
Creek
it.
Bridge, from what I think.
That's all I've got, Chairman.
All right, thank you. Now we got discussion items by commissioners. Start with Commissioner Kessler.
Well,
Oh, sorry. I'm trying to fast forward here. We do have a couple. Sorry about that. We'll start with Mr. George Ramo. Thank you, sir. And Mr. Larry Roberts.
he's gone.
Gone. That is it. So now we can go to discussion items. Mr. Kessler.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you.
So, and I know that Commissioner Merritt had mentioned he was going to be addressing
Talk about it
something.
now.
Yeah, so, and I was looking for, because of these disturbing occurrences that have taken place in our county, one, that the postings of the Facebook by some personnel in the Sheriff's Department, and then just this recent vandalism of the church properties with the painting of the KKK. I was out of town when there was a meeting that you had attended, and I heard Commissioner Merritt describe it as a town hall meeting. I don't know if it was a...
That wasn't me, that was Ralph, I think.
Oh, okay.
I attended it.
Okay, I hear different things, whether it was an NAACP meeting, but in any event, you were at least engaged in that process, and I thank you for that. But I think now, I would like to know if you have any suggestions, having gone to that meeting and been involved, as to where we as a board, with respect to the Sheriff's Department, what actions or motivations we should be doing, or what actions or suggestion that this board take with respect to our community. That's what I was asking of you.
Can I talk first?
Well, I'd like to hear the chairman at least give his opinion.
From the standpoint of how we deal with the sheriff, I think it's that we need to be very careful that we let that process run its course. He's under an investigation, and I think we need to be very careful that we don't taint that one way or the other. That's his responsibility, and we all certainly have opinions. I think we need to let that run its course. As far as the community goes, we probably have pockets of racism, maybe on both sides, maybe on multiple sides. I think the problem is we need to have a clear message to people that we love and we care about everyone in the community. And that's what I said at the town hall meeting, and that's what I said I meant from my heart. I think that the tendency on things like this is the pendulum can swing too far either way, and we can, I shouldn't say we, but some folks can give the impression that one side or the other point of view represents our community. I don't believe it represents our community. I think that we have a kind, caring, loving community, and we're full of human beings, so we're going to be flawed and we're going to have problems with that. I grew up in Wakulla County. I graduated from Wakulla High School, and I never felt any racism existed. Now I'm not putting my head in the sand and saying that it didn't exist, but in my heart and in my community and the people that I frequent, I never saw that as a problem. But I think we all need to be careful that we go that extra mile to show people that we're all important, that we're all equal, and you'd like to think at this point we're way past that and we don't need to have that conversation, but it doesn't hurt for us to give that extra encouragement to people of all races in our community. So that's where I feel, just as an individual commissioner and a human being in Wakulla County.
I was just looking if you had any suggestions as far as action that we as a board could take.
Well, Randy mentioned that he wanted to possibly bring a resolution, and so let's hear what you have to say.
Yeah.
I talked to Jessica. She said we may already have something along these lines, and I think we at least need to respond in some way. I think to not respond at all and pretend it never happened is almost tantamount to saying it's okay, and it's not okay to go.
I agree.
To go to a church and spray paint, no matter what the church is. Now, as far as the sheriff's department, I'm not touching that with a 10-foot pole. That's his business. People are, in my opinion, they're entitled to their own opinions, but they're not entitled to force or offend them on other people. So my thought was just to simply have a resolution, or either re-adopt the existing resolution saying we condemn behavior like this racist behavior and racist treatment of other people. Just that simple. Just something simple. We acknowledge that this happened. We're not going to just ignore that it happened. We appreciate that people were hurt by this. We didn't do it ourselves, but we will understand that it does affect people, and we're not just going to sit here and say, deal with it, too bad. I think we as the leaders, I thought I'd never say that, but we as the leaders need to at least make some statement saying we as the county leaders do not approve of behavior like that, certainly defacing the church. And that was my thought.
And I fully agree with everything you said, and I think that as a commission we should also look deep in us and look deep in our community, and where we see deficits we should speak up. One of the things I've been struggling with is I've been struggling, I guess, the same portion that Mr. Hennessy, when he got up and spoke earlier this evening, struggles with. It's, we see some pretty hateful things being said on Facebook and I don't particularly go to Facebook, but I get
Me neither.
sometimes people send me what they call these screenshots, and it's almost unbelievable to see citizens in our community writing such things. And I think when we don't speak up about things like that, just hateful speech, that we almost give a green light saying it's okay to take it one step further, and it's not. It's not okay for me to have that hateful speech, and I think we have to take a very strong stand.
Like I said, my stand maybe not be quite, I don't want to dwell into the area of stepping on free speech, for sure. I'm just saying, I think we as a board representing the county could say we do not condone any sort of racist activities. I mean, I grew up in South Choppy, and my best friend growing up was a black girl. Years and years. My dad finally tell us we couldn't take a bath together anymore because we're getting a little too old, but anyway. I just think something along those lines. No, I wasn't in high school. But I remember that till today. Dad says, well, it's about time you understand.
Are we bringing, staff bringing?
I'd like either the staff to bring back, and this is just, I don't know if we need to vote on this or not, just either find the existing proclamation or resolution we have so we can readopt it, or come up with one along those lines. Now, I don't want this to blow up into a contentious issue. I think we all agree on some of the basic points, and maybe not on some of the other ones.
I would like staff to at least forward to all of the board members, I speak for myself, I would like it forwarded to me, the original one, and so we can take a look at it and see if we want to add or subtract or do something else with it. I think also this issue of free speech, I am a very strong supporter of free speech, even when it may be hurtful to me or my family. I support free speech. I don't like people marching down the street with SWAT stickers.
Nope.
But I'll defend them, their right to express their thing. I think in our community here, we have to, maybe it's an education thing, of when these symbols are put out, that KKK can't mean to me what it means to an African American. It can't. It cannot hold the same meaning. And I think we have, as a community, and we as leadership, have to force us some kind of education on the sensitivity of how insensitive actions like this are. I'll stop there.
Well, and free speech does not give anyone the permission to destroy someone else's property, to deface property, to cause harm. And so, you know...
but it's a slippery slope, I think, what Howard's saying is, I don't know if he's saying or not, but when you start trying to regulate what somebody's saying on Facebook,
it is.
You might as well try to herd cats, you know?
Yeah.
Ain't gonna happen. Other item I'm sorry.
No.
Also, Chairman, Commissioner Merritt, what we would, we'll send it out to you guys, each individual, if it's there.
You pretty sure it's there, though, Jessica?
I'm not sure.
Okay.
If it's not, then what we will do is send out to each one of you, ask you some points that you would like to have in it to help us formulate a proclamation moving forward.
And if that's not there, I know we passed a proclamation on civility.
I think that's what I'm referring to.
Okay, well, that may have a lot of good verbiage in it that we can use to create a new proclamation.
At least that we made a statement and we said something.
Okay,
instead of
sorry.
nothing.
Right.
1 cent sales tax is coming up 2 years. I think we'd probably good to get ahead and educate the public with some of the projects that have been, because I'm going to personally support renewing it. Roads like Wakulla Aaron were paved with it. Part of Martin Luther King used to be Lower Bridge through Wakulla Gardens was paved with it. I would ask, there used to be signs out back that said once this project paid for with 1 cent sales tax. What do we need to do to give you permission to get either a sticker on the sheriff's department car saying this paid for, or either the rec park, this rec park improvement paid for with 1 cent sales tax, to let people know what that money is being used for?
We budgeted some money this year for education purposes. I think what we'll do is come back with, I'll take that now that y'all are ready to get going. I can take that and bring back a plan that says here's a layout of a plan I want to get started.
We can't
Actually, we'll
advocate
need to
for
ramp it. You know, we'll go a little bit slower this year and then ramp it up next year. But
You need to take a good look at how Tallahassee promoted theirs. Their promotion was just really, really
yeah,
good.
but theirs was probably a couple $1 million too.
I know, but we can scale everything
Oh, yeah.
accordingly, but the general idea of
Yeah.
how they did that.
And
I agree. It was
just
very
to
good.
go ahead and get this off the table, 3 are up for election. Is there going to be a campaign? I'm not asking you to make any promises, but is one of your campaign promise that, you know, I don't want this 1 cent sales tax. Is anybody adamantly against it and thinks we should not renew it? Or I don't want to get into a big dog mess, but
One thought on that, are we not putting it on the presidential preference primary? Is that not the current plan for timing of renewal?
We could. That's something we're going to talk about.
Okay.
I thought we were going to put it on the primary and then again on the general if it.
Well, that's what we're going to. That's part of the plan. I'm going to bring you guys.
The primary in that year will be
You know, I personally
in
think
February.
it's critical to improvements in our county, paving roads, parks and recs. I don't know if you guys have a different opinion on that, but
No, the citizens need to know exactly what they're getting for their money and realize that that was voted into by the citizens, not by a board of county commissioners. And so, you know, the citizens will have that decision. Do they want that roughly $2 million going toward, you know, fire and EMS vehicles, parks and recreation, roads? And so we need to educate them about
we may
where their money's going.
we may also want, you know, this is
Think
2 years off.
education.
It's good to plan ahead, but we may want to look at the allocation. How, you know, right now I think it's 60% roads. We may want to increase the allocation to parks and rec and maybe reduce the roads, because we got a lot of roads paved with that first phase.
I think you really definitely need to show the public where the allocation's gone. It's not good to just say, this is a tax and we're going to collect it and spend it where we want to. So I think they really need to know exactly where it's going within reason.
Well, again, we may.
I know I want the rec department to get about 90% of it.
I don't know if that's something the 1 cent sales tax committee should be looking at. Really, I think we should decide that.
Right.
You know, if we want to change the allocation going forward, again, we got 2 years and just
Well,
trying
they
to-
can make a recommendation,
Right.
though. That's what they're
Yeah,
charged.
yeah, that's fine.
Yeah.
I'm just trying to get the juices flowing a little bit. We got plenty of time.
Yeah.
You guys will be in the hot seat.
We'll bring
with
back
stuff anyway.
in this sometime in the next couple of meetings something back. It'll probably be in February or March.
You know, you wouldn't think about it, but Wakulla Aaron used to be dirt right there where the McDonald's is, and that paid for that whole road, which has turned into a major, you know, thoroughfare.
Now, I don't think it's a good idea for us, if that renews, for us to bond all that money
No.
like was
Oh,
done
no.
last time, and then
We'll fight that
we're
battle.
paying debt service for the next 15 years on it.
That's really handcuffed us.
Yes.
I have some concerns of the 1 cent sales tax, so I can't say I'm marching totally in step with you other four, but I have some concerns of what went on in the past, and I'll look at it as it comes forward and see what we...
Fair enough.
Anything else? Only thing I have to say is just Merry Christmas and Happy Holidays
yeah,
to
that-
everyone out
forgot
there.
that.
This is our last meeting of the year, and so hope everyone ends their year well, and see you next year.
I was going to say that, Ralph. I forgot.
Since Randy and I were just recently elected, I think we can both say Merry Christmas and thank you for your confidence. A couple of things, basically, is that Panacea had a wonderful Christmas parade.
2,000 people's what Cherie told
Yeah,
me.
it was a wonderful night. Just an absolute excellent boat parade down the middle of the street. The sheriff we were able to close the street. I had Larry Tucker on my float, and he's the standard of Panacea. I was so happy to be able to do that. The Stone Crab Festival, I don't know if we met since then, but they brought about 15 to 20,000 people to our community, and I believe that's Waterfronts who promotes that at St. Mark. But they had a very successful stone crab festival. It's always good, but this time the weather was great, and it was just absolutely great. And just think about, we didn't spend a dime of our money, or if we did, it was just a dime, to bring 15 to 20,000 people to our county. that's really important. If you could do that every day, it would be a great place. So I compliment St. Mark's Waterfront for that, and the Panacea Waterfronts also for the Panacea Festival that's so successful.
I want to just wish everyone at home a Merry Christmas. I want to thank all of those who have been volunteered their time in support of Operation Santa. Operation Santa, if you've been there and seen all the things that have been donated and the number of lives that have been impacted, and from what I understand, 115 families had sponsorships this year. And they've just done really wonderful things, and I just thank those that help put this on every year and help those within our community. I want to reiterate what we talked about earlier. Tomorrow night is the Historical Society has an open house from 6 o'clock to 7:30. Our Historical Society Museum is really something to be proud of. If you've never been to the museum, tomorrow night will be a great night to go and just see Wakulla County's history and see the exhibits that they have there. And I want to also thank Brent and with them as well. At the last meeting, I mentioned about the shape that FH13 was in with the potholes, and it was just in really bad shape. It was in very unsafe shape. Well, since the last meeting, Brent and ESG worked in coordination with the Forest Service, and they've milled up that section of road from 375 to the first bridge on FH13. So you hear a lot of people wanting dirt roads turned into paved. Well, we've temporarily turned the paved one back into dirt road.
That's on the negative side for Stick Creek Trees.
It's on the negative side, but it's a lot safer now, and it's increased the safety of that road to the point that citizens have already expressed that they're glad that it's like it is even temporarily, because it was in such unsafe conditions. So I want to thank Brent and Cleve for working with the Forest Service toward that.
It is going to get repaved.
It is going to get repaved. It's just temporarily in that condition.
Motion to adjourn if we're done.
We are adjourned. Have a good night.
Good job, Ralph. It was an easy one.
Yeah.
A little bit of heat on you.
Tell you what. Excuse me.